2001 terror attacks which killed 3,000 people in exchange for not being given the death penalty. Now, Washington says it's revoking that deal. Our North American correspondent Peter Rose joins us on the line. Peter, what's happened?
Well, no sooner had we heard about that plea deal that the news came that it had been reversed by the Pentagon. This, as we know, is an extremely long-running case. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the two alleged accomplices mentioned in the plea deal have been held at Guantanamo Bay since 2003 when they were detained. The case has been delayed and delayed, but when we heard about this deal, which would have involved guilty pleas in return for no death penalty, it looked like a trial wouldn't happen at all. There was outrage at that, not least from survivors, families of those who were killed. Republican politicians here, the House Speaker Mike Johnson, said it was a slap in the face for the families of the nearly 3,000 people who were killed. But now Lloyd Austin, the Defense Secretary, has stepped in and removed the case from the military official who oversaw the court at Guantanamo Bay and facilitated the agreement. He said he determined that in the light of the significance of the decision to enter into pre-trial agreements with the accused, responsibility for such a decision should rest with him as the superior authority. And it means, bottom line, the death penalty is now back on the table.
You mentioned the reaction of the families of the victims. Do you think that that was a significant factor in this, in changing the deal?
Certainly the Defence Secretary had been under pressure, not least from the families, but a number of especially Republican politicians here. So that could well have weighed into this decision. And we have heard that those family members, or at least some that have been talking to the New York Times, are welcoming the decision. They are especially glad that the death penalty is back on the table, but that it also means that there will most likely be a trial that many of those very closely affected with the horrific events of that day, a trial that they hope will answer some of their lingering questions relating to how the attacks were planned and who knew about them.
And do we have any kind of timeline for that trial?
Well, even up until before tonight's news, this morning's news, the case wasn't likely to start until 2026. The jury selection stage of that trial, when it eventually gets underway, could be a very long and difficult process, given the high-profile, extremely sensitive nature of the case. So for now, there is a certain amount of uncertainty over how it is going to proceed, the tactics of the prosecution from here. The pre-trial process will continue, but it could be years before we get to a final conclusion.
Peter Rose, thank you very much. The Pentagon has announced it's sending warships and fighter jets to the Middle East to support US troops and defend Israel amid soaring tensions in the region. With the assassinations of a senior Hamas commander in Tehran and a Hezbollah commander in Beirut this week, there have been threats for both Iran and Iranian-backed fighters to retaliate, creating a sense of unease and tension in Israel. The Pentagon spokeswoman is Sabrina Singh.
What we are doing to bolster our capabilities is in the defense of Israel and by nature is defensive. So no, I wouldn't say that it escalates tension. We certainly do not want to see this spread out to a wider regional conflict. We don't believe it has right now. We're going to continue to urge for de-escalation, and the best way for that to happen is for this ceasefire deal to come through.
The Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh. Well, Jenny Hill reports now from Tel Aviv.
It's quiet here on the streets of Tel Aviv. It's the Sabbath, so people are at home, but they are uneasy. They know that potentially they're standing on the brink of a much wider regional conflict. It's worth pointing out that there have been a number of similar moments since Israel launched its war on Gaza following the attacks of October the 7th, when it's looked as though that war could explode into a much wider conflict. But this is, without doubt, a very dangerous, a very significant moment. And we understand that urgent diplomacy is going on, most of it behind the scenes, to try to diffuse the tension. People here will, of course, be keeping an eye on developments. Many flights into Israel and some into Lebanon have either been cancelled or delayed. It's reported that Israeli ministers have been sent home with satellite phones for the weekend for use in the event of any kind of attack which takes out communication networks. It feels as though the world is watching the Middle East right now, and perhaps it's worth thinking about two groups of people whose voices have become perhaps somewhat lost in the vast geopolitics of all of this. And they are, of course, people in Gaza, for whom the prospect of any kind of ceasefire now seems perhaps as remote as it ever has. And then the families of the Israeli hostages still being held captive by Hamas in Gaza, who know also that the chances of being reunited with their loved ones anytime soon, right now, seem greatly diminished.
Jenny Hill. Days after announcing himself the winner of a disputed election, the Venezuelan president has held a defiant press conference. Nicolas Maduro, who secured a third consecutive term, accused the opposition of producing fake evidence to contest the result of the poll and blamed foreigners for undermining Venezuela's democracy. The United States is one of the countries that's rejected the official result. Speaking via a translator, Mr. Maduro described that as a coup attempt.
For the people of Venezuela, it's indignant that a foreign authority, in this case imperialist, pretends to substitute the public powers of Venezuela, the electoral council, and to impose, through lies and manipulation, a coup. And that's why I denounce that the government of the United States, together with Elon Musk, the international fascists of the in this movement against the people and against the democracy of Venezuela.
Our America's regional editor Leonardo Rocha was watching the press conference.
At the center of the row here between the government and the opposition, we have the publication by the opposition of almost all the results from polling stations across Venezuela. They say that more than 80% of those votes, they obtained them and they published on the website. That happened a couple of days ago, and now the government gave this press conference to dismiss all this as fake. But they said basically that they only had access to 1/3 of the votes, not 80% as they said. They also said there were many unsigned documents proving that they might have been produced by the opposition, and also that was all premeditated, that they were never going to accept the result, which is to be expected because the opposition said from